Great to see everybody today. If you're in the auditorium, if you're out in the atrium, if you're listening live streaming online right now, welcome. Glad that you're here. How many of you have ever done or are doing any gardening, landscaping, anything like that? How many of you? Yeah, I've got some gardening statements, and I want to see if you agree with these or not. Gardening requires lots of water, most of it in the form of perspiration. How many of you agree with that? Yeah, right. Here's another one. A perfect summer day is when the sun is shining, the lilacs are blooming, the birds are singing, and the lawnmower is broken. Agree with that? Yeah. Another one. I can grow better green stuff in my refrigerator than in my yard. Anybody there? All right, good. Oh, one more. When weeding, the best way to make sure you are removing a weed and not a valuable plant is to tug on it. If it comes out easily, it was a valuable plant. Well, so today I'm going to use a gardening and a farming metaphor because the Bible often compares the Christian life to agriculture. For instance, Genesis 8:22 says, as long as the earth endures, there will be seed time and harvest. There are principles of seed time and principles of harvest. Galatians 6:7 says, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. So today I want to talk about daring to plant in faith. And I specifically want to teach you God's principles of planting and harvesting, of sowing and reaping. And if we ignore these principles, it'll hurt us. But if we apply these principles wisely, our lives will be productive. And we can use these principles in every area of our lives. We can use them with our physical health. What we plant, what we eat, guess what? It's going to bloom in our bodies. It's going to produce fruit. We can use these principles in our finances, in our relationships, in our parenting. They also apply to us as a church. Whatever we're planting now, we will harvest later. And this is so important because whatever you need more of in your life, you need to plant in faith. If you feel like you need more appreciation, well, start planting appreciation in the people around you, and you'll reap some appreciation. If you feel like you need more talent, more skill, plant what little talent or skill that you have. God will grow more. If you need more kindness, if you need more money, if you need more energy, whatever you need more of, apply these principles of planting and harvesting to them. You need to plant what you need. So here's first principle. You can write these down. Pull out those program notes. Everything starts as a seed. Every idea started as a seed idea. Every dream started as a seed dream. Every achievement, every nation. America started as a dream, as an idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Your life started as a seed. Your father's seed connected with your mother's egg and life. This church started as a seed idea in the mind of our senior pastor, John Smith. Every living organism on the earth started as a seed. Genesis 1:11, God says this, let the land have seed-bearing plants and trees that bear fruit with what? With seed in it, according to their varieties. Circle according to the varieties. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And a seed in the Bible is often used as a symbol of something else. A seed is anything, you can write this down, anything valuable that I give away. When you give away praise, there's value to that. When you give away good advice, there's value to that. When you give away your time, your money, when you serve someone, there's value to that. And when you love someone, there's great value to that. So a seed is anything that I give away of value in order to help somebody else. And it all starts as a seed. It could be time, money, appreciation, wisdom, energy, whatever. Words can be seeds. Seeds that we plant in the minds of other people because they'll grow. Oh, they'll really grow in their minds. And that's why we need to choose our words wisely, especially with those that we love the most. So let me ask you, what kind of seeds are you planting in your relationships? Are you planting seeds of trust or distrust? Are you planting seeds of kindness or seeds of crankiness and anger and disrespect? Are you planting seeds that produce fruit, or are you planting seeds that's just going to grow weeds in the lives of other people? So everything starts as a seed. Here's number 2. Nothing happens until the seed is planted. Seeds don't do any good if they remain in the packet. I bought this package of bean seeds a year ago. They never came up. They never even sprouted. They didn't. What's wrong? Well, they don't do any good here, right? They don't do any good there. Jesus used this principle to explain actually why he came to die. In John 12:24, Jesus says, unless a grain of wheat, that's the seed, is buried in the ground, it cannot reproduce. But if it dies, it will produce much fruit. I mean, imagine a farmer this time of year buying a sack of corn seed. He puts it in his barn. He says to himself, oh, I'm so afraid I'm not going to have enough corn. So he just leaves it in the barn in the bag. We would go, that's kind of foolish. Because seeds are what? They're meant to be planted. They don't do any good right here. And every act of planting is an act of faith. I believe, when we plant, we say, I believe something great's going to happen here. I believe something productive is going to happen when I plant this seed. I'm going to give it away. I'm going to bury it. I'm not going to keep it in the package. I believe it's going to produce some fruit. And planting seeds is always risky because the seed is covered up, it's buried, we don't know if it's going to sprout, we don't know if it's going to come up, we don't know, it might fail. It might fail. And what if I give my seed away and nothing happens? Nothing happens. So planting is always an act of faith. Jesus said in Mark 4, the kingdom of God is like someone who plants seed in the ground. Night and day, whether the person is awake or asleep, the seed still grows. But the person does not know how it grows. And last week, our senior pastor, John Smith, shared some of these very exciting projects and goals that we have as a part of our Daring Faith. He talked about us planting multi-site churches. He talked about us improving some areas in our facility, students and kids areas. He talked about partnering with some local and global compassion organizations. He talked about improving and adding to our Special Friends ministry. But you know what? Guess where all those great ideas are right now? Still in the package, aren't they? They're still there. And unless we plant them, unless we take some action, invest some energy, invest some money into them, a year from now, 2 years from now, they're still going to be in the package. So here's number 3. When I have a need, I should plant a seed. When a farmer looks out on a barren field and he sees no crops, he doesn't go, man, why doesn't something grow out there? I can't believe nothing's growing out there. No, what does he do? Well, there are times when you should plant, and there are some times when you should pray. And sometimes we should not pray, we should plant. We can do more than pray. A farmer could look at a dirt field and say, oh God, there's no corn in my field. And God's going, well, did you plant any? No, I didn't plant any, but God, I'm praying for him. God's going, help me here. Help me do something. I mean, praying is important, but so is planting. Ecclesiastes 11:6 says, do your planting in the morning and in the evening too. In other words, plant all of the time. You never know whether it will all grow well or whether one planting will do better than another. We should be planting seeds, good seed, in our lives all the time because you never know where it's going to grow. Now, let me be real honest with you right now, because some of you are saying to yourself, I'm waiting on God. And the actual truth is, God is waiting on you. Last week we learned that when God wants to do something on the earth, he plants an idea in the mind and the heart of a person, and then he waits. And now it's up to us. It's up to us. And some of you think that you're waiting on God for a job or for a spouse or for some sort of physical health condition or some financial stability. And in reality, God's saying to you, help me here. Work with me. Fill out a resume. Make a phone call. Get a date. Enroll in Financial Peace University. Start exercising. So whatever you need more of in your life right now, plant it. Plant it. Give it away. If you need more energy, use some energy in a gymnasium to get more energy. If you need more talent, use the talent that you have. God will grow it. He will. Time, money, friendship, anything. Whatever you need more of, Begin to plant that right now in your life. Here's number 4. I reap what I plant. Pretty obvious. This is the principle of reproduction. If you plant beans, what are you going to get? Watermelon? No, if you plant zucchini, what's going to come up? You're going to get a lot of zucchini, right? It's an inviolable rule of the universe. That phrase that I had you circle in Genesis 1, according to their varieties, is also translated after its own kind. The phrase says we always reap what we sow. Galatians 6:7. In fact, turn to the person next to you and say this right here. You will reap exactly what you plant. Say it to the person next to you. And this works both ways, doesn't it? It can work for us or against us. Whatever I dish out, I'm going to get back. And the Bible talks about this a lot. Let me read you a few negative examples. Job 4:8. People who plant in trouble harvest it. Proverbs 11:18. Bad work gets paid with what? A bad check. Proverbs 22:8. Those who plant seeds of injustice are going to harvest disaster. Hosea, you planted wickedness, and now you will reap evil. You see, when we sow bad seed, what comes up? Weeds. Weeds. Now here's some positive examples. Proverbs 11:18. The one who sows righteousness will reap a sure reward. Plant good seeds of righteousness, and you'll harvest a crop of my love in Hosea. And James, peacemakers plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of goodness. Are you getting the idea that this is not some minor theme in the Bible? We will reap what we sow. In our children, with our spouse, with our friends, with our businesses, in my spiritual life, in the community as a church. If we sow anger with our kids, what are we going to get? Angry kids. If we sow patience with our kids, what are we going to get? Patient parents. If Crossroads sows generosity and compassion in our community, what are we going to have here? We're going to have a community, a church full of people who are generous and compassionate. We will reap what we sow. I can't sow irresponsibility and reap success. I can't sow laziness and reap a harvest of a great career. I can't sow stinginess and reap generosity. And the Bible is full of people, both sides of this thing. For instance, Jacob. His name meant deceiver. And he cheated his brother and his dad. And guess what? He spent most of his life alienated from his family. Haman built these big gallows to hang a guy on that he hated, named Mordecai. Guess who gets hung on the gallows? Haman. Haman. We reap what we sow. And I love this verse out of Galatians in the Message translation. The person who plants selfishness, ignoring the needs of others and ignoring God, harvests a crop of weeds. That's all they'll have to show for their lives. But here's the good news. Those who plant in response to God, letting God's Spirit do the growth work in them, harvest a crop of real life, eternal life. We harvest what we plant. Here's number 5. I always reap more than I plant. This is the principle of multiplication. A few summers ago, I have a big garden, and I had a bumper crop of cucumbers. So I filled this 5-gallon bucket full of cucumbers, set them at the end of the driveway with a little sign that said, "Cucumbers free." And so these 3 little neighbor girls came by, and they said, "Can we have all of them?" And I said, "Yeah, but I don't want you to throw them at each other." They said, "Oh, we won't." So they go, 3 of them trudged that bucket on down the sidewalk. A couple hours later, I drove out in the neighborhood, and right at the intersection were these 3 little girls with a bucket of cucumbers with a little sign that said, "Cucumbers, 50 cents. They got a lot more than they sowed. And in the parable of the soils, Jesus said it this way, Mark 4:8. Some seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop. And what's the next word? Multiplying. 30, 60, even 100-fold. That's the way it is. This will work for us and against us. If we sow a little bit of gossip, there's going to be a lot of gossip about me. If we sow a little bit of criticism, there's going to be a lot of criticism about me. If we sow a little bit of a good reputation, business reputation in the community or church reputation, we're going to get a great harvest of a great reputation. You see, there's an exponential potential in every seed. As that old proverb expresses, anybody can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed. Because who knows how many apples a single seed and a single apple tree will produce. So I'll always reap more than I sow. Here's number 6. I reap what others plant. You see, we're not the only planter. Other people are planting all around us, and sometimes we reap both good and bad from those who went before us. And some of you grew up, sadly, and I'm sorry to say this, in families with a history of abuse, with a history of alcoholism, and maybe a history even of divorce, a history of ignoring and even rejecting the very idea of God. And you have to decide what you're going to do about that. You can decide it stops now. Something new is going to start with me. I'm going to break that chain right now. I met a guy who goes to Celebrate Recovery here who said to me, you know, Dennis, I am possibly the 4th generation of alcoholism in my family. He said, and the reason I never miss a Friday night Celebrate Recovery, he said, is because it's going to stop with me. I'm going to start a brand new family legacy starting with me. As someone said, we cannot go back and write a new beginning to our lives, but we can start now and write a brand new ending. And it can start with you. You see, we're all harvesting both good and bad from our past because we're not the only person sowing. Everything we do, what we say, what we do has consequences. And by the way, our lives, what we do now in this season is going to affect future generations. So we need to take it very seriously. And one of the things I love about our church is not just what goes on in this room, but what's going on in the rest of the building right now and throughout the course of the week with our kids. Because wonderful seed is being planted in the lives and minds and hearts of all those children every single week around here. And I want to introduce you to Jose and Joanna Cabrera. I'm going to invite them to come up right now. They're actually co-directors of our Daring Faith campaign. And they actually met here at Crossroads. And I asked them to share just a little bit about the impact of Crossroads on their family.
So when Dennis asked us to share a few stories, we kind of chuckled. First reason why, we're those parents that love to talk about our kids. So the fact that I got a microphone, a stage, and you guys have to listen to my stories, hey, I'll take that all day. The other reason we laughed is because we know as you guys are probably parents out there and your kids, if they're involved in the children's ministry or the youth ministry, you probably have the same stories that we have as well too. And we have 3 girls, an 11-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And one day we were out on a drive and heading to Fort Collins, we passed Crossroads, and our girls started into this chant, church, church, we love church, as we passed the Crossroads building. And it was awesome to hear for probably the first 30 seconds, but 15 minutes up to Fort Collins, I finally had to say, all right, girls, we get it. You love church, all right? But as parents sitting there in the car, I mean, we were so proud to hear our kids get excited about church as well, too. And our youngest 6-year-old, she last summer finally got to go to summer camp here, and my wife was dropping her off, and you could just tell the excitement she had. She couldn't hide it, and skipping all the way into the building, just singing, I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait. And to us, we just get so excited, and we're proud that Crossroads has instilled excitement about God into our kids as well, too. And I'll let my wife share a few stories, too. We have 100. We won't share all of them, I promise.
So I have another story about our youngest, the 6-year-old. She recently started her spring soccer season, and she had her first game a couple of weeks ago. And I was trying to get her all excited about the first game, and I was like, okay, baby, you've got to go after that ball and be tough. And she plays on a co-ed team, and so I said, you know, even if a little boy has the ball, don't be afraid. Go for that ball. And she looked at me and said, I won't be afraid. God's with me. And then just skipped off onto the field. And so I thought, oh, that's great. And so,
Great story.
so the last story I promise that I'll share. is about our middle child. And this happened a couple of years ago when she was in first grade. I went to parent-teacher conferences, and the teacher pulled out a stack of her work to show us, and she pulled out this piece of paper specifically, and she said, so the assignment was, we all have someone who is special to us. Think about someone you care about and write about that person who's important to you. And Marie wrote about God. And so I'll just read to you what she wrote as a first grader. She said, I care about God because he loves us. Also, he does nice things. Also, he is special. Also, I believe in him. So, as you can see, Crossroads has a very special place in our hearts. They're an important part of our lives and our kids' lives, and it's why we were excited to be a part of the Daring Faith campaign. And we're just excited that Crossroads is continuing to grow and reach new families as well. So.
You know, when Joanna and Jose shared that story a couple weeks ago, I thought about how I got to be where I am, and I thought about the church where I grew up in. And I thought about, you know, I went to a church that was very rich in faith. And I remember week after week of being in children's ministry classes, and I remember my excitement to go to summer camp. And I remembered I got baptized there. I learned to pray there. I learned to value this book there. I learned to value the rich community of people that was there. And when I was a child, I never thought about who made sure there was a quality teacher in my class. I never thought about who paid the bills, who made sure that the summer camp was all lined up. I never thought about when they built onto the church building because they'd outgrown it, who paid for that. I never even thought about that. But I guarantee you, there was a whole group of people who so valued making a kid's life so accessible to the love of God and the love of Jesus that they were willing to sacrifice. They were willing to extend great energy so that the next generation, me now, could experience that fruit. And I was the recipient of what they planted. And so are you. You're the recipients right now of what people who have gone before you have done and given. That seat that you're sitting in right now, literally, that seat that you're sitting in right now and out in the atrium was provided probably by somebody else, unless you were in on when we moved into this building. Because when we moved in, we had no money for chairs. We were going to make everybody sit on the floor the first week. We thought, nah, it's not too good. So what we were going to do, we had a chair drive. And every chair cost $69. And we invited people to buy some chairs. And I remember the family that came in, and they handed us a check for $690. It was a family of 5. And they said, we want to get a chair for each of us, and we want to make sure that there is an empty chair for somebody every single week that's going to come in the future. And so we are the recipients of that. And as a part of this Daring Faith, the next chapter, we're asking everyone to make a 24-month financial commitment over and above their regular giving to help us accomplish what's right now in a great package of wonderful Daring Faith seeds. We want to plant more in the northern Colorado. We want to improve our areas, kids, students involved, included. And I realize that some of you are saying, well, I don't really have any kids here. I don't even have any grandkids here. But Jose and Joanna do. And Deanna and Ron do. And Chaito and Mauricio do. And Neil and Priscilla do. Will you do it for them? Would you do it for them? Would you do it for the next generation? Because like those who sowed a lot of seed before us, that we are now the recipients of, will we do the same thing for those who are going to come after us? And we don't have time in these services to talk in great detail about some of these great projects and goals that we have. And so I just want to reinforce what Katie just mentioned. If you're in a Daring Faith group, make sure that you go this week. And if you're not, come back for that vision session with John right after this, or come Wednesday night. Or actually, it's at noon, 12:15. And maybe you're going, well, I don't know what daring step of faith I could take today. Actually, that's one. Say, you know what? I'm going to go get some more information about what's going on around here because I'm someone who's very interested in helping the next generation that's going to come along. So I would encourage you to do that. And another aspect of my faith was I grew up I'm probably a fifth generation Christian in my family. My great-grandparents, whom I never met, prayed for me. My grandparents, my parents, a strong legacy of faith. And I have been the recipient of this great multi-generational legacy of faith. And I know some of you are thinking, I never got to grow up in that. I never got to grow up in that. But here's the deal. You started. You started. So that your children, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, whom you may never meet, would someday rise up and say, I'm so grateful for my family legacy of faith that 2-3 generations ago began. And maybe for some of you, it begins this very weekend. You could be the one who determines that the future generations of your family are going to be rich, because you're planting seeds of prayer and you're planting seeds of love and godliness and generosity and faith and all those other things. And people who come out of your family tree someday, or people who walk into the doors of Crossroads in the future, or walk into the doors of one of the multi-site churches that we plant, will have an opportunity to experience exactly what we're experiencing right now. Jesus said this in John 4:38, I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor. So are you going to leave a legacy of stinginess or generosity and sacrifice? Are you going to leave a legacy of faith in your family or a legacy of doubt and fear? It starts now. It starts now. Here's number 7. I plant by faith, not by my feelings. Sometimes people aren't generous because they don't feel like being generous. So they go by their feelings. No, that's not the way this works. We plant in faith, not always by our feelings. Do you think farmers always feel like working? I grew up on a farm. There were many nights I had to get up at 2 a.m. in the morning and go bale hay. Think I felt like it? No, but that's when it was the best to bale. So, mind over mattress, you get out there and do it, right? That's what you do. You go by your faith. So let me do a little confession here. A little confession is always good for the soul. I don't always feel like being nice to people. I hate to admit it. Don't think less of me because of this. I don't always feel like, sometimes I just want to go to the grocery store and get my stuff and go home. And if I bump into you, or 2 or 3 of you, I'll be nice. I promise. But sometimes in the back of my head, I'm going, I'd just really like to get the milk and eggs and go home. Sometimes I just want to say, leave me alone. But I don't always feel like being kind. I don't always feel like being generous. I don't always feel like being the one that needs to bring a word of hope in a hospital. I don't always feel like speaking on a weekend. But I don't just live by my feelings, and neither do you. I happen to live by faith. So sometimes I plant when I'm tired. A lot of times I plant when I don't really want to. I'm not all in, so to speak. When I'm stressed. But I move ahead in faith because I believe in a God who goes before me, and anytime I plant something, God is going to use it. Use it. A few years ago, I was really discouraged here. And I wanted to quit. I did. I said to God, I'm done. Not just with Crossroads, with the church in general. I'm done. I'm so done with this. And I actually had this conversation with him. I had this little dream, this little idea. I said, here's what I'm going to do, Lord. I'm going to move to Yampa. It's close to Steamboat. We can't afford to live in Steamboat, so I'm going to live in Yampa. I'm going to open a little fly fishing shop there. I'm going to find a little church, doesn't demand too much. I'm going to attend occasionally, give a little, serve a little less, show up once in a while. But I'm done with this. And God, in His kindness and gentleness, said to me, He said, Dennis, you could do that. You can. He said, but you do have to understand that the significant things I'm going to do in the world, the things that transform people's lives, the things that transform communities, He says, I'm going to do all of that inspiring work through healthy, vibrant, risk-taking churches. And you can move to Yampa. You'll probably catch a lot of fish. but you're going to miss out on all of that. And that just sat in my head and in my heart for quite a while. And finally I came to God and I said, okay, I don't really want to miss out on that. So I'm in. I'm all in. And if I would have acted on my feelings at that point, as I look back, think of what I would have missed out on. I would have missed out on 3 unbelievable Project One days. I would have missed out on 3 years of Christmas services and Easter services that are, I leave this building levitating. I don't even walk in the parking lot till I get to my car. It's so exhilarating, those weekends. I would have missed dozens of Saturday mornings with this little group of men who meet here. And every week, I'm astounded. God comes and he does something very special in those times. I would have missed out on that. I would have missed out on this whole Daring Faith adventure that we're on. And so, I'm in. I would have missed out on all of that. And sometimes, God is going to come to us and he's going to ask us to do something and we don't feel like it. He's going to ask us to sacrifice time or money or our future or our lives or a lot of comfort. And we're going to be tempted to go, no, God, I just don't feel like it. But if we act against our feelings and step out in faith, we are going to enter the zone where God does his best work. So the choice is ours. You want in? You want out? Which brings me to my last point, number 8. The best time to plant is now. What's the best time to plant a tree? 25 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Now, right? Now. Don't wait for a better time. Sometimes we say, oh, Lord, when I graduate, or when I'm not so busy, or when the kids are gone, or when I retire. Ecclesiastes 11:4 says, those who wait for perfect weather will never plant seeds, and those who look at every cloud will never reap a harvest. Henry Cloud says, a good plan executed today is better than a perfect plan we never get around to starting. Perfection paralyzes potential. Do you want to watch history happen around here? Or do you want to make history happen around here? God did not bring you into this room, into the atrium today, for you to watch history happen. He's inviting you into it. And he's saying, come on, are you in? Are you all in? Eileen Guter wrote this, kind of tongue-in-cheek. You can live on bland food so as to avoid an ulcer. Drink no tea, coffee, or other stimulants in the name of health. Go to bed early, stay away from nightlife, avoid all controversial subjects so as never to give offense. Mind your own business, avoid involvement in other people's problems, spend money only on necessities and save all you can. You can still break your neck in the bathtub and it will serve you right. So what kind of life are you reaping? You think about your life right now. Do you like it? Are you going, you know what, Dennis? I couldn't be more challenged. I couldn't be more faith-filled. I couldn't be more joyful. I couldn't be more satisfied. I couldn't be more scared in a good way because I'm walking in the zone of God. If that's your life right now, just keep pouring on the fertilizer. But if it's not, if you're saying, you know what? Some things need to change. And they do. And here's what you need to do. You need to change the way you're planting. Let's pray. So, Lord, you've said that no one's going to make a fool out of you. That whatever we plant, we harvest. So, Lord, help us to plant good seed in abundance in every area of our lives. Help us to realize that we're leaving a legacy for future generations. That everything we do has an impact on people, and many of them we will never know. Lord, I thank you. I really thank you for the people who've come before us here at Crossroads and for the past 20 years have given and served and lived and sacrificed. And Lord, right now you're calling us as a church. You are. You're calling us as a church to say, okay, Crossroads, what are you going to do now? Are you going to just stay where you are? Are you going to continue to reap the fruit of the past? Or are you going to plant? Are you going to step out in faith and plant. We want to say yes. In Jesus' name, amen.